Donald Trump is apparently done with investigations, and not just the Mueller investigation. He's apparently ordering the executive branch to effectively no longer cooperate with any call for documents or testifying before Congress or anything like that. And here we have three ways that that's playing out. So overall, in an interview with the Washington Post, Trump said that complying with congressional requests was unnecessary after the White House cooperated with special counsel Robert S. Mueller's III's. I've never seen it written out in full like that. Probe of Russian interference, the defender of the realm, the first men and the Andals, and the president's own conduct in office. So he complied with that, so he doesn't need to comply with anything else, although bear in mind that he never testified in that case. And he said in particular, there is no reason to go any further, and especially in Congress where it's very partisan, obviously very partisan. And so specifically, what is he doing now? Well, on Tuesday, two White House officials said the administration plans to fight a subpoena issued by the House Judiciary Committee for former White House counsel Donald McGahn by asserting executive privilege over his testimony. And one little added bit of spice in that paragraph right there is that he's been bragging for the past week after the Mueller report came out that I never used executive privilege, never, don't testify, executive privilege, never. And so they don't want Don McGahn to testify because Don McGahn knows what actually went on. And in particular, he was involved in perhaps the clearest example of obstruction of justice when Trump ordered him to start the process of getting Mueller fired.
Yeah, that's Exhibit A in the case against Donald Trump, if there ever is a case for obstruction of justice. And then, of course, he also famously told McGahn to lie about it. But here's the great ironic twist in this story. So he says, well, I already had him cooperate with you guys, so I don't want him cooperating anymore, and I'm going to use executive privilege. Well, since he already waived executive privilege to have McGahn talk to Mueller, that legal principle is once you waive it, you can't bring it back. There's a colloquial way of referring to that. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So once you waived it, it's gone. So that means that he definitely does not have a legal ground to stand on. McGahn must testify. Now, I think that as with everything else they're doing, they're just trying to drag it out. They have no case at all, but they're like, well, maybe we'll just gum it up in the courts and then it'll take longer for McGahn to testify. And so maybe we'll run out the clock and they won't be able to impeach us.
Yeah, and we'll see. I think they're gonna keep pushing on it. We do know that William Barr has announced that next week he will actually be testifying before Congress. So that is something, although Barr doesn't have the knowledge. Barr can talk about why he deceived the public with his memo in the way that he did, why he called that completely unnecessary, weird press conference before the Mueller report came out. But he doesn't really know anything about what the Mueller report covered because he wasn't involved in those actions. Don McGahn actually was. But in addition to that, the administration directed Carl Klein, a former White House personnel security director, not to comply with a subpoena from the House Oversight Committee, prompting the panel to move to hold him in contempt of Congress. In a letter to Klein's lawyer obtained by the Washington Post, White House Deputy Counsel Purpura wrote that a committee subpoena asking Klein to appear, quote, unconstitutionally encroaches on fundamental executive branch interests. And so why do they want Klein to testify? He's accused of retaliating against a whistleblower who raised concerns that 25 people who were denied security clearances by career officials were then granted the clearances by political appointees. Klein allegedly placed files out of the reach of whistleblower Tricia Newbold, who has dwarfism, after she voiced her concerns.
So for a second, before I read that, I had some sympathy for Klein because his lawyer said, look, we've got two equal branches of government, one telling us to testify and the other one telling us not to testify. So what are we supposed to do? So Klein has now moved to the Department of Defense, so they're saying that's still an executive branch, so we're gonna listen to the people who are employing us, the executive branch, and you can see we're in a hard spot. And I thought, well, I don't agree with the Trump administration, but that's an interesting point that Klein's attorney is making. Then I read what John just read to you, and I thought, I have no sympathy for Klein ever about anything. The administration is filled with monsters. Who does that? Who's like, oh yeah, you want to be a whistleblower? I'm not even going to imitate it, but I mean,
it's ridiculous. Yeah.
I mean, it's just God. They're such terrible people.
The only way you can work for someone and do the things that he's telling you to do, you kind of have to be a bad person yourself because it'd be the first day if you happen, maybe you didn't vote for Trump and you happen to be still working within the canals of government. And then he says, do this from me. And you say, wait a second, I've been here for a while. That doesn't make any sense. I have to either do something about this or leave. I can't connect myself to this. We talk about it's an everyday thing. When you're a kid, your mom says at 7, hey, don't hang around any kids that are doing any bad stuff. You're gonna be connected to them too. That's basic. So when you decide to align yourself with someone who's doing these types of things, you've already said, I'm okay with that now. So the sympathy definitely doesn't reach that point. And also we see this pattern. We talk about the lawlessness of Trump. And when he told the border agents, hey, when there's asylum seekers coming, just tell them there's no room. And when that comes down on you, or just forget about it, I'll take care of it, whatever that means. And then their superiors told him, hey, if you do it, it's on you and you alone. Yeah. He just has a pattern of telling people to break the law for him and him only, because he can do nothing about it or something about it, and he'll figure it out later.
And he never does actually help them.
It's the same thing from the rallies. Hey, punch that guy and I'm sure I'll pay your legal bills. How many legal bills did he pay?
He doesn't pay his catering bills, let alone his legal bills. So Representative Elijah Cummings put out a statement about the Klein incident, saying the White House and Mr. Klein now stand in open defiance of a duly authorized congressional subpoena with no assertion of any privilege of any kind by President Trump. Based on these actions, it appears that the president believes that the Constitution does not apply to his White House, that he may order officials at will to violate their legal obligations, and that he may obstruct attempts by Congress to conduct oversight. Now understand, we have a third example of this that we're gonna do, but just based on that, my reaction to this whole thing, all three of these and the other stories like it that will come, is that's what I've been saying. That's everything that I've been saying. Like, the only reason he complied with any of this was because he was afraid that there might be some sort of consequences. The Democrats, in saying that even though there's obvious obstruction of justice detailed in the Mueller report, they say we're not gonna do anything about it. And so he justifiably responds with, well then why would I go along with any of this? If there's no consequences, if I can do whatever I want, why would I let my people testify? Why would I give documents? Why would I release my taxes? You've said that I am effectively a dictator if I wanna be. If I wanna sit on the throne, I can just sit on the throne and you're not gonna do anything about it. And this is like 1 week after the Mueller report. He's just getting comfortable right now. Imagine he's got another 1.5 years of president. He could get a second term. Imagine what he's going to be like now that he has been told that there will be no consequences for anything that he does.
Yep. Yes, and it's not just about the Mueller report anymore. It's not about the Russia investigation. This security clearance has nothing to do with Russia.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, why comply with anything?
Yep.
Yeah.
Judicial orders.
Yeah, and so Nancy Pelosi has opened the door to him being completely lawless by saying, I will not enforce the law. But it's not just her. Unfortunately, Barack Obama also opened the door here because Eric Holder refused to testify in front of Congress on a nonsense issue that they made up about guns, the Fast and the Furious program, that was totally debunked in the press. If I was Holder, I would have gone in and yelled at them, but I would have complied. And so since he didn't comply, now the Republicans are going, well, Holder didn't do it. Don't open the door, and Obama opened the door just a little bit on a lot of different issues, which now Trump is running through.
Now, the third example of this is, and this is all just in like a 48-hour period, the Treasury Department defied a second demand from House Democrats to turn over 6 years of President Trump's tax returns. There's no legal standing to refuse that. The regulation is as clear as any government writing has ever been. They're just not complying with it because, again, what's the difference? There's no consequences.
We talk about when people are punished. You talk about how you're supposed to set a precedent. No one's gonna do this if we punish people. Well, this guy's entire life, the president, his entire life he's been let off the hook for doing things the wrong way and bad ways and illegal ways, and he learned his lesson. If you learn the lesson one way, reason why many people believe in the death penalty, oh man, I'm not gonna do that crime because they might kill me. Well, if you continue to do the crimes and then we allow it to just move on his entire life, why wouldn't he continue to do it? Probably in his own words, he'd be stupid to not walk through that door. When he talked about his tax returns, I'd be stupid not to pay no taxes if you let me. And they let him continue to do all of these things, so why not?
Which leads to the ramifications of not turning over the taxes. I'm actually surprised that the Treasury Department is taking its time with it. Mnuchin says that they're going to give a final answer. They've defied Congress twice, but they're going to give a final answer on May 6th. You know, if he doesn't turn over the tax returns, there could be legal consequences. If the Democrats had a spine, they could order him arrested. I know, hey, Treasury.
You're talking about Mnuchin.
Yeah, the Secretary of the Treasury being arrested. Well, that's an elite. I mean, that's the top of the elites. Yeah. So of course the Democrats are like, ooh, that might mean one day I might have to abide by the law. Yeah. So they're going to be very, very reluctant to do that. But the reality is, if you didn't follow a subpoena from Congress, I guarantee you would be arrested.
Exactly.
And so, and now if they did that, then they'd have everybody's attention. And I wonder if Mnuchin, I mean, look, I can't imagine that he's concerned about that because the Democrats are so weak that it would be just shocking beyond belief for them to actually enforce the law. Okay, but I wonder if Mnuchin is concerned about that, and that's why he hasn't made up his mind yet.
Yeah, exactly. Like people seem to think there's been an effort to muddy the waters around this. Like Trump has come out and said that I'm not going to release them. That's a nonsense statement. It has no relationship with what's going on. This has nothing to do with Donald Trump. They're not asking Donald Trump to release his taxes. This is the Treasury Department. He is the head of the executive department, but Mnuchin is responsible for complying with the law. And so if I was Mnuchin, I would be at least a little bit worried. Although I think that there's a better than 50% chance that Nancy Pelosi is just going to say, you know what, we'll let the voters decide in 2 years.
It's a better than 90% chance.
Yeah. All right, now you know what we think. TYT.com/impeach. On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.